So a few weeks ago when I talked about wanting to do my personal build with Intel 12th Gen, and I was like, I don't know if I want to reuse the Inwin 928. I was talking about maybe using the Spectre 3. One case kept coming up over and over and over amongst the audience. I asked you guys, what case do you think I should look at to consider for my personal build update? And over and over and over, you guys said, consider the lian-li Odyssey X. It's well, I wouldn't even call it a full tower. It's more like a super tower, convertible case that has some pretty crazy insert transformer sounds here. Okay. Corsair's new 32-inch Xeneon 1440p gaming monitor has the features you need to play your best. Features like silky smooth 165Hz refresh rate IPS display with 1 millisecond MPRT response time, quantum dot technology, HDR 400, and built-in mount for either a microphone, webcam, or even a DSLR. To see the complete list of features of the Corsair Xeneon 32-inch gaming monitor, follow the link in the description below. So as I like to do, I like to save the unboxings and opinions for you guys. And I'm gonna be honest, I know the different orientations this case is capable of. I know the logic behind it. I know the build quality of lian-li, but I'm not entirely sure of like what's involved in to convert it. Like, do I have to completely rebuild it? I don't know. So we're gonna find out together, and you guys get the first impressions. Some people like to do the unboxing and then kind of look at it and play with it and then box it back up and then do the video. You guys get the raw opinion. So look, check this out. This is the silver version. I said I wanted a black and silver build, and that's why you guys recommended this one so much. So this is gonna slide out independent. It's also, make sure I'm not hanging off the desk here. It's also tempered glass, so I wanna be careful. So I'm gonna be careful with this, because I'm never gonna get this reboxed right. Look at the grooves in that. I'm never gonna know. Like, one would take a picture and be like, that's how it goes back together. Sounds like I'm unsheathing a sword. So here's the actual chassis itself. And this thing's actually pretty light though, like without the panels and stuff on it. So if you look at the manual here real quick, you can see the two orientations that you can use for airflow. So these are clearly the feet. Wow, look at the rubber pads on those. Those aren't gonna move around on ya. So there's the layout right there. So we've got this guy right here, which appears to be some sort of a pump mount. So there's 3 notches in there. So essentially what you do is you line it up with the notch. So you got these 3 positions. And this is a pump mount. So that's gonna be important for a pump reservoir mount. If you're running deep rads or thick rads and you gotta push it back some, you can go back as far as, whoops, right there. The wobbling you guys are seeing is not the case's fault. This table is not flat anymore. So you got this shroud right here also, which is kind of interesting to be honest. It almost feels pointless because it's, right? So I feel like that's a little bit pointless. I'd almost rather just have custom cable links made that look really nice and run pretty and just have the whole power supply be exposed than have this really awkward, doesn't really cover anything shroud. Okay, so mounting locations here. Front can fit a 360 or a 420. Plenty of open airflow design. You've got your different rails here that you can use to mount the fans. We've got also a 120 or 140 mount on the side right here. Remember, lian-li is the brand that really pioneered the whole let's mount stuff to the motherboard wall to give maximum amount of locations to put rads and fans. So it makes perfect sense that they would have that built into the Odyssey X, which is clearly their extreme kind of a case. What? Okay, so it's just got these notches on there. Just worth pointing, that's why it fell out. So this is your drive cage mount. You can mount 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch or fan controller or something there. Velcro tabs right here, which are attached to an actual metal piece. So you just got one here, one here, one here. And this is designed to give you a place to, route your cables, but not a whole lot of cable management built into this case so far. It's just worth pointing out. 2 more of those mounting trays right here for your drive. Now the reason why that one fell out, and I'll demonstrate on this one, is once you loosen up these 2 bottom screws down here, see, actually you don't need to loosen it. They're just designed to slot in there like that, and then the thumb screws on the top. So that's why the other one fell out, because I undid the screw that was, holding it in place. One thing worth noting Any coolers or water blocks that require a rear retention, make sure you install the block first or the cooler first, because there is no motherboard cutout to get to it. That's kind of surprising to me. Normally they have a big cutout here, but I think that's so that you can have a place to mount the extra drives. So this is the top right here. So we've got a real satisfying power button that's got an LED ring around it. We've got our analog headphone microphone jack, USB-C to USB 3.0. Pretty standard, but what I want to show you here was this guy. This is the top radiator / fan mount, which again fits a 360 or a 420. So you can see you can have a lot of cooling options on this. But what I want to look at now, and I want to see first if I can figure it out on my own, is how the side panels work. Well, I failed. Let's look at the manual. Actually, before I concede that fast, let's take a look at what comes in here. Pretty massive screw kit. Never worry about losing any screws for this guy. Look at this. Bracketry. Derek, I'm looking at you. Baton Raton, Florida? Boca Raton, known as Blurry Stick. So these caliper looking things are clearly gonna be my key to... How the fuck? Performance mode glass fixed lower bracket. So it comes pretty much set up already out of the box in dynamic. I kind of want to check out performance mode because, you know, the name implies that it's going to be great because it's performance. But we have to rotate everything to be that. If you notice, this is a rectangular case. And to be in performance mode, it goes more upright like this. And everything has to rotate, including the motherboard tray and stuff. Do I want to do that though? So performance mode, instead of the glass panels being flat like this, they'll come out and they'll basically have a big opening here and a big opening at the bottom. And I'm not entirely sure if that's necessary. Oh, and by the way, there's the cutout right there. It's just blocked by a panel behind it, which kind of makes that almost seem pointless, right? Because that panel, it's solid. That's the whole back of the case. So there is a motherboard cutout, but you just can't access it. So the motherboard piece does come out and rotates. It's interesting that there's 2 thumb screws at the top for that, because you have to take out on the IO shield side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regular screws, I think, maybe more. So the thumb screws seem a little bit like, what's the point if you have to use a tool back here anyway? So there's the motherboard tray. Power supply mount moves with it, because all this stuff, right, the motherboard tray and the IO have to stay in correlation with each other, because they obviously need to line up. So there's that. Okay, so this was the top piece here. It comes out from inside like that. So that comes off. To switch to performance mode. Also, keep track of what screws go where, although lian-li does give you 56,000 extras. So now you gotta be careful with it, because now you have to, technically, because it won't hold, it won't stand now, because the weight's all in the back, right? And that's out past the point of where the feet are. That's, okay, this piece. So this is the orientation end up going in like this, because now the buttons are gonna end up here. There's a lot of work involved in converting this. Now I'm starting to hope this is the position I want it to be in if I use it, because if I want to put it away now, I gotta put it all back. And then I gotta watch this video backwards in reverse so I know how I do it. Okay, so now I'm assuming you're gonna have to take this out and reroute it. Remove the top cover brackets. What does that even mean? I'll put it like this. So now we have to move the front side connectors, because this is now technically the back. What was the front is now the back. And we get to move it to here. You can install it in either orientation, whether you want the power button on the top or the power button on the bottom. I think top is better. So now the airflow is designed to be purely from bottom to top. So updraft, because you can't mount any fans right there. And you can mount fans and radiator down here and up here. No fans go on the back because this is now going to be taken up by this. So they should just hook on there like that, and then all the screws make their way back in. Finally, we get to see some sort of a idea of what it's going to look like. I mean, this has been like an hour so far worth of conversion here. It's a little more involved than I believe I was expecting. Aha. What? Oh man, the stupid, I hate these retention clips that this thing uses. So this popped out. That. Get the top ones in. And it just popped out again. Why? Not that easiest side panel installation ever. All right. Oh, now it's heavy. And then I believe what you can do up here on the top, for good measure, is you can thumb screw that so it doesn't pop off, right? Thoughts? I got a few of them. This does not feel like a Devour product, even though it's got his thing right there. I think everything lian-li now just gets a Devour plate. This does not feel like Devour had input on this, and if you did, then I'm shocked because this is, in my opinion, not the most friendly or intuitive to use product. By making it in performance mode and having these bulge out like this, what it's doing effectively is increasing the internal volume of the chassis. There is a plate that goes in the front. Earlier I said you don't get to mount front fans when you go in this orientation. That's a lie. You can. The piece you remove from the bottom that you end up replacing moves to the front and you can mount fans to that. They're inset, so there's double grills that the air has to go through, which I believe could end up being a little bit noisy. So if you look on the front right here, you'll notice some scrapes. I didn't do that. That was what was underneath the feet. So the way the feet mount, it's metal to metal. And I don't know if that happened during the installation or what. You can even see the feet holes. That's a foot hole right there, and that's a foot hole. So these scratches right here was underneath the foot mounting, and that's from when it was installed at the factory. So something happened there. I don't know if the person put it together was a little rough with it. Because there's no sort of like rubber layer between, which I think would be highly recommended if you're gonna be mounting metal pieces that need to be moved around the case based on what you're doing, to isolate it from metal to metal contact so that doesn't happen. So now I wouldn't want to use this just because of those scrapes in the front are going to highly bother me. Sure, I could paint that, but it will never match the rest of the case because this is anodized aluminum, which has like a media blast on it, which has a nice textured kind of a bead blasted look. It's a neat looking case. It took a long time to actually convert this. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to even tell you what dynamic mode was like because the amount of time that I spent putting this together, I don't want to put it back, which kind of sucks because if I want to put it back in the box, I have to. But I'm not going to really do that on camera. In terms of the layout, and after everything I just went to put this piece on, I'm going to take it back out. I still feel like this is the weirdest, unnecessary thing ever. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to be using the pump mount, this still mounts down there, and then you can mount the pump to it. It mounts like that. I just didn't put it back in. I still feel like this is odd. This should be solid on this end, so you can't see any wires. Right now, you really have no place to sort of shove wires. The silver piece right here, and remember they have a black version as well, so what I'm about to say will only apply to silver. This almost makes any wires you route back there stand out because of the fact that it's a bright silver piece now that wires will be showing up against. You have a decent amount of thickness here to be able to mount radiator and fan combo. You could easily do a 30 mil rad with a 25 mil fan, or potentially even a 45 mil rad with a 30 mil fan, because the top of your motherboard will be right here. It will cover these ports right here though, which are gonna be needed for ECS power, or EPS power and fan cables and stuff to go through there. It's a very industrial looking case. Not the cleanest thing I've ever seen from lian-li. It definitely screams lian-li in terms of the build quality. The quality of parts are amazing. I mean, the anodizing, the heavy grade aluminum that they use. This convertible aspect of it seems odd. Phil and I were talking about it. After seeing me go through all this, his opinion is I'd rather just buy that version of the case. Like, why don't they have a regular version and the dynamic version? Or the dynamic and the performance. He was like, I would just want to buy it this way. I guess it's a good attempt at making a convertible case. I have no idea what the performance difference between the two are. Obviously, there's no system in there. This case has been out for like a year or something like that, maybe 6 months. So I'm sure someone's already done that level of data. I'm really disappointed about the scratches underneath the feet though, because that alone makes me not want to use it. It's not the biggest case in the world. It's actually fairly narrow, if you want to know the truth, in terms of like the actual chassis part itself. You could fit long graphics cards in here. You'd start to run into space issues though if you go with really long cards, if you're trying to do a front mount radiator with fans and a reservoir. It's gonna start getting tight pretty quickly. So I am glad I took a look at the Odyssey X. I do feel like for an anodized surface, it scratches pretty easily. I've worked with a lot of black anodized stuff, and metal's gonna scratch, and anything dark anodized is gonna show the raw material underneath. If you scratch it pretty deep, I felt like these were really easy to scratch. So the anodizing doesn't penetrate the surface very far. But anyway, for my personal build, I don't feel like this is it. I had to see it in person to know. I had seen some builds that people did online with it. It's cool, but this is not for me. The only thing that sort of sucks is by now having, in the performance position, you could mount radiators and fans on the bottom, but the power supply is gonna take up half of that anyway. So you're not gonna have very much, you might be able to fit one fan here, but then if you're going with a radiator or a reservoir, you have to mount it to your fan and use one of those brackets, but then you have limited space here. That was what I was saying when I told Phil off camera. I said, as soon as I oriented it this way and made it shorter in terms of length for taller, I really did sacrifice the layout in terms of making the water cooling build easier. This would be harder to water cool in this orientation than the other dynamic position, which in its name, performance, almost makes you feel like this is the position you want it to be in if you were gonna water cool it, but you actually make it harder on yourself going this direction. But this was, like I said, the most requested case for us to take a look at. I love seeing companies take a risk on something like this. And I guarantee, sure, this case is expensive to buy retail, and I bet you it's just as expensive proportionally to make because of the amount of tooling that's needed to make all these parts and stuff. It doesn't disappoint for being a lian-li product, it just doesn't fit what it is I'm looking for. So that means I'm still on the hunt for what case I'm gonna use for my personal build. Am I gonna use the Spectre 3? Am I gonna use my Inwin 928 or 5? I'm not going with the 928, that was way too big for the space that I had to put it in. You guys know me and my personal builds, they have to be something unique. And whereas this is certainly unique, it's a little too unique for what I want it to be. I cannot make this clean inside. So that's where I'm gonna ask you guys once again, recommendations on weird cases. Weird cases allow me though to give a nice clean internal layout. So without exposed wires and cables and stuff everywhere. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. Oh, and if you wanna see dynamic mode, there are tons of reviews and builds for this case already online. Just go check one of those out. I don't have the energy right now to put it back.
That many steps, huh?
It was a lot of steps. It was a lot. Oh, and the manual sucks. This is next to useless. Front panel's installation. That's it. There's no direction. It's so tiny that it becomes very difficult to actually tell like where it is that they're wanting you to put something. Like they draw these lines through, like screws go here, but it's so tiny you can't tell too easily like where they're actually mounting up to. Manuals can make or break the user experience. And although it got me through it, I was just as mad at the manual as I was some of the stuff. So, all right guys, enough ranting. It's not a bad product, it's just not for me. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.